Hey everyone, welcome to another inspired interview here on the Inspired channel. My name is John Nolan, and due to popular demand, we have our first interview partner back on here, Nick Breau. We're so excited to have you. Thank you for taking the time.
I'll always take the time for you.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you. And for those of you who haven't seen the first interview, you can click pause and go back and watch the first one, or just go back later. So Nick Breau is, some of you or most of you might know him because you're all Abraham-Hicks listeners. Nick is a 9-time Abraham-Hicks hot seater. He's a breakthrough specialist, an author of 2 books and one in the making. The 2 books that are out there, Single No More and The Power of Joy. And Nick's just now in the process of writing his 3rd book, which he says is next level, and I can't wait to read it.
Oh, it's so good. I can't wait to get it out there.
There you go. That's the energy that's coming from this book. So we're excited to have him back. And because you guys were so excited about the first interview, we wanted to go a little deeper today. And when we say deeper, we mean actually easier and easier and easier and more fun and more fun. And so Nick and I have been just talking briefly before we started this. And Nick, there's one word that's been coming up so much lately in my reality, and I think in yours too, and the word is alignment. And can you kind of talk us into alignment a little bit and how that works for you and the importance of it?
Yeah, so in the context of law of attraction, people seem to think that alignment and vibration is kind of the same thing. And the first thing that I always like to do is remind people that these are actually 2 separate topics. Alignment is the level of connectivity between you and your inner being. So the more you're in alignment, the stronger your intuition is going to be, the more synchronicities you're going to experience, the more that mechanism of synchronicity is going to work for you, which is an important aspect of alignment. And of course, the happier you are, the more you're in alignment you're going to be. So I tell people that happiness is like the Wi-Fi signal between you and your inner being. So the happier you are, the stronger that signal is going to be, and the more alignment you're in. And then vibration, known as being a vibrational match or vibrational frequency, is like that AM/FM radio tuner, where you're tuning your vibration to match certain experiences. And that's what leads to manifestation. So alignment, again, is the connection between you and your inner being, and vibration or vibrational match is what defines what you experience out here based on what's in your attraction point.
So when you say alignment between you and your inner being, I feel like when we are aligned with our inner beings, then we are also on, kind of on the gateway to being aligned with Source. And our inner being is aligned with Source. So I feel like whether you call it God, the universe, Source, the name doesn't matter. But I think a good word that you used is synchronicity. And that's kind of the evidence for me, because when you are aligned, and even when you're not fully there yet, those little synchronistic moments, like you're thinking of something and it pops up in your reality, a number, a word on a license plate, those things, how do you experience those moments, and what significance do they have for you?
Yeah, well, let's say it's alignment that unlocks those moments. And in my new book, the way I start off of this book is talking about how people perceive or approach the law of attraction. So the traditional approach to law of attraction is, I want money, I want a relationship, I want a certain career. So most people approach the law of attraction from this paradigm of wanting things. And the way I've been looking at law of attraction lately, the way I talk about it in my book, is to step away from this paradigm of chasing after things and make it a focus of how you're going to live your life. So let's say we were to split it into 2 different paradigms. One paradigm being life is about effort and hard work and struggle and fear-based and chasing after things. That's the old paradigm of physical reality experience. The new paradigm of physical reality experience is what you experience when you're in high and consistent alignment. And what that looks like is ease and flow and allowing and effortlessness and strong intuition and that mechanism of synchronicity playing a part in your day-to-day life. So really, when I look at this whole world of spiritual development and self-help and growth, we are literally looking to shift from that old paradigm to the new paradigm. And when people are chasing after things like money, for example, it's not the money that they really want. It's that life experience of freedom and being able to do what you want to do when you want to do it and being happy. So my big piece of advice, and alignment plays such a big role in this, is stop chasing things for a little bit and work in moving into and experiencing and allowing this new paradigm of being. Because once you embrace this new paradigm of being, you're really unlocking that mechanism of synchronicity in a way that completely changes how you experience your life. And that's what people are really after. And that comes with alignment. Alignment is what leads to that. And that's why the Abraham-Hicks message, the number one teaching of the Abraham-Hicks teachings is alignment, is get happy, because that's really what's going to unlock that magical life.
I feel that, when I hear the word alignment, I have heard it so many times and thought about it, felt my way through it. And I feel like I know exactly what that feeling is. But sometimes I feel that when people first hear it, it's like they have maybe an idea of what it might be, but I feel it's also a little bit of a abstract word for some people. And would you say that the best way to know that you're aligned is, and it's kind of like, when people ask you, how do I know if I'm in love? And when people ask me that, I say, well, if you are in love, you're not asking that question. And that's how easy it is. If you're in love, you're not asking yourself the question. It doesn't come up. And it's kind of the same with alignment. But I think you could also substitute that word for maybe peaceful, because when you're peaceful, it doesn't really matter what's going on around you. Stuff that you would react to normally, you simply don't, because you're in this peaceful moment. And I feel being peaceful and being aligned is a very similar energy.
Yeah.
And I've been wondering for the past couple of weeks, what is your take on happiness and fulfillment? How do you feel? Do you feel that there's a gap, or do you feel that one doesn't exist without the other? Or is happiness the first step to fulfillment?
When I think fulfillment, I think satisfaction, right? Okay. So when we talk about alignment and measuring alignment, a lot of people think that synchronicity is the benchmark of alignment. And synchronicity, the angel numbers, the nice little coincidences, sure, they're going to show you that you're in alignment. But the real way to tell whether you're in alignment, of course, is by how you feel. And a lot of people are familiar with the Abraham-Hicks emotional guidance scale. I've kind of got my own simplified version. And what that looks like is at the bottom of that scale is struggle. The next layer up from that is relief. The next level up from that is satisfaction. The next level up from that is turned on. And then the next level up from that is bliss. So for me, I like that simplified scale because it's easy to tell when you're in each of those states.
It is.
And whether it's fulfillment, happiness, satisfaction, I think everybody feels all of those different emotions in a maybe slightly different way. And I think it's about, is this a pleasant feeling place, or is this a resistant, closed up feeling place, right? For me, I don't know why, but satisfaction is the one that really puts me in this place of relaxation. And that place of relaxation is the receiving mode, right? So when you're in that place, that's when you're in the zone. So when you ask me, what's the difference between happiness and fulfillment? I would say fulfillment for me is deep satisfaction. And I would say happiness is naturally present in that moment. What do you think?
I think that happiness it's almost like more of an active energy. You see, happiness sounds to me like it's more of, it's more of a verb energy than a noun energy. And satisfaction is a state, right? You're in that state. But when I feel like when I'm really happy, I have this, I want to move. I want to express. I want to create. Satisfaction, on the other hand, is that state of alignment and peacefulness where it's already, everything is there. I don't even need to create in that state because I am satisfied right here, right now. It's done. It has arrived. It's all, and in that state, we might mentally know that at some point we're going to go into creation again. But right now, here, I'm so satisfied. I'm so aligned, so peaceful, so calm. I don't need anything. There's no needing anymore, no wanting anymore. And I think that's probably the difference.
And that's the secret sauce that allows things to show up.
So for me, and that's just, everyone finds their own pathway. But for me, the quickest way there is meditation. Because first of all, that's the intention for meditation, is for me to align, connect with source, with God, but also to shut off the senses, and not rely on what I see, what I hear, what I smell to define things for me. And it's interesting, I just talked to our daughters about it. We only perceive about 1% of the visible light that is out there. 1%. So if we would really rely on our senses, like our eyes, to define reality for us and happiness for us, I mean, we're screwed because we only see 1% of what's there. But when we close our eyes, we actually get to see more and more and more and more and more. And so for me, it's meditation, but I know there's a million different ways. There's going out in nature, which is also a beautiful way for me, and a sort of meditation. So what is it for you, for your clients? What do you feel are some of the most beautiful and kind of easiest way to get there?
I think everybody's different. So for a lot of my clients, I'll start by giving them a morning practice, right? And everybody's morning practice is going to look different. So the goal of that morning practice is to feel good. So for some people, it might be to put on some country music and do some yoga. For somebody else, it might be to take the dog for a walk on the beach or hop on a paddleboard, right? So everybody enjoys different things because everybody's a unique thumbprint. The key thing is working your way into that feeling good place and then learning how to hold it. And it's funny because I posted a YouTube video about this today, one of my favorite exercises called the Effort Happy Game, where what you do is early in the day, you do your morning practice, you feel as good as you can, and then you play this game where you try to hold that good feeling place. And when you finish your morning practice, let's say you get yourself all the way up to an 8 out of 10 on that happy scale, you check in every half an hour, 90 minutes, 2 hours to see if you can hold it. And you hold it as long as you can. And maybe halfway through the day, you notice, I've dropped from an 8 to a 4. You ask yourself, okay, what thought pattern kicked in? What circumstance did I experience that allowed me to drop myself from an 8 to a 4? Oh, it was the way my boss treated me today. Okay, so tomorrow when I'm at work, I'm going to put a little bit of more elbow grease in, and I'm going to see what I can do not to let my boss create that wobble that's going to drag me down. And what that does is it builds resilience, where over time, if you keep practicing this exercise, you're naturally going to stop allowing things to pull you out of alignment, and it builds emotional awareness. So what you'll notice is it's going to be the same emotions that keep creating wobble for you over and over again. And then by dealing with those emotions and doing some clearing work, they're going to trigger you a lot less. And when you combine those two things, it becomes a whole lot easier to stay up here.
I couldn't agree more. And I feel one easy way to do that, because people are in so many different environments during just one day. It's in, within their family, it's in traffic, it's maybe at the coffee shop, it's at the office or whatever, wherever the workplace is, and errands and stores and whatnot. So there's a million different environments that you have absolutely no control over.
Absolutely.
So and for me, the question is, I'm going to interact with a number of people today that are in a number of states that I have no control over. So what do? And I one thing that comes up for me is being unconditional. So, and there's two things, you know, unconditional love and unconditional appreciation, no matter what the other person does or says. And so I've asked myself, okay, this is really easy with my family. Usually I love them unconditionally, but when I go out and someone's being, you know, how, you know, whatever their mood might be, how do you do that? And I just wanted, maybe that works for you too, but there's like puppies and babies you usually love and appreciate unconditionally. It doesn't matter if they pee on the floor. It doesn't matter if they puke on you. There's just an unconditional love. And other animals, of course, but I'm just saying puppies and babies because that's kind of very present. Do you feel that or how easy does it come for you to be unconditional in any environment? And is that something that you talk to your clients about, or something that comes up in your courses?
Yeah, it's interesting. On the topic of unconditional love, the first thing that I remind people of is the most important person to love unconditionally is yourself. And a lot of people struggle with that. And I would say the number one dominant negative emotion that I find in people, or people seem to carry, is this emotion of not good enough, right? Because everybody's busy comparing themselves to other people, comparing themselves to the goals people are achieving, they're measuring where they're at in life. And, you know, all this negative self-talk does nothing good other than pull you out of alignment, right?
Oh, yeah.
So that's one of the first things that I help people work through in the quest to maintaining those high and consistent states of alignment. Very important topic, especially in the context of people who are looking to attract relationships.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard it even in less maybe spiritual or less deeper conversations that, you know, you cannot give what you don't have, and you know you cannot have what you don't give. So if you don't love yourself, you can't love someone else truly, and vice versa.
And then on the topic of being unconditionally loving towards other people, the number one tip or piece of advice I give is based off of something I saw at an Abraham-Hicks seminar in Boston a few years ago. After break time, Esther came back on stage as Abraham, and she told a story where at break, Esther went backstage like she always does and went back up to her room like she always does. And Esther takes the service elevator because she would get hounded by the crowd if people saw her out in a regular elevator out in the public. And when she got into the service elevator, there was a waiter there. And the waiter looked at her and he said, "Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am, but you're not supposed to be here. But that's okay. I'm not going to tell anybody." Right? And Esther knew that she was exactly where she was supposed to be, but he didn't know any better. And that's okay, right? So whenever somebody is doing something that triggers you, whenever they may have a differing opinion, they don't know.
I know.
Right? Everybody's doing the best that they know how at their level of awareness. And if somebody doesn't have a certain level of awareness that you might have, that's okay, because that's just where they're at. And it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with that. And for me, having that understanding, it's probably one of the things, if not the thing, that's helped me the most in being completely accepting and unconditionally loving of everybody, no matter who they are or where they're at.
I so appreciate what you just said. Also in the context of the conversation that I had today, totally on point, but also because there comes so much peace with accepting the fact that people are in different levels of consciousness and awareness, and there is truly no better or worse. And here's also why I feel maybe a very practical thing, that if we were all on the same level of awareness and we would vibrate at the same frequency, a lot of what we take for granted every day wouldn't work anymore. And I think it's what makes the world go round right now, is that we find the harmony in the different levels of awareness. And if we pull out the judgment, it's all good. And the second really important thing I think that it does is when you don't, when you accept that someone is at a different level of awareness, and when it's totally fine the way they are, you do not rely on them anymore or their behavior, their output for your satisfaction, your happiness, your alignment, your balance, which I think, especially often in relationships, professional or family, we often do that. We often rely on our partners, rely on the other person, and whatever they put out, influences where we stand. And I think this acceptance, unconditional acceptance and love, all of a sudden takes the pressure off. It's like, wow, all this struggle that was there is gone with this one, and it is really it's an inner thing, but the acceptance is so important. And it also, Eckhart Tolle always says, when you fully accept the moment, it doesn't mean that you don't want to change anything in your life. It just means that you are absolutely appreciative of this moment right now, and you don't have to push against it anymore.
And that's a key word, push against, right? Because the more we push against the unwanted, whether it's somebody's behavior, whether it's a bill that comes in the mail, the more we push against things, the more momentum we give it and the more it's going to stick around.
What do you feel? And so you work with people every day, both on a one-on-one basis and in your courses where there's multiple people. So what is right now the topic that comes up most?
Oh, wow. Lately, I would say the main theme that I've been exploring, in my group calls or with clients, has been about pushing against, has been about really working out of this energy of needing to solve things and learning to allow and be okay with things just the way they are. So for a long time, Abraham-Hicks uses the term art of allowing. And for years and years and years, until probably in the last 6 months, I always believed that art of allowing meant allow your desires to come to you. And only recently did I gain, a new awareness that it's not just about allowing your desires to come to you, even though that's a big part of it, but it's also about allowing circumstance to be exactly what it is. That it's exactly what you need it to be, whether you want it or not. My belief is that my inner being and I are having a co-creative experience. And I believe that source, the universe, non-physical, whatever you want to call it, has the ability to put me in absolutely any circumstance imaginable. And if I'm in this circumstance right here, right now, whether it's contrast or anything else, I have to be there for some reason. And because that non-physical comes from that unconditionally loving place, that means that where I'm at has to be somewhere that serves me in some way, right? And when I see people pushing against contrast, what comes to mind is, my son, when he was maybe 3 or 4 years old, trying to learn how to tie his shoes. And him sitting on the floor, struggling to tie his shoe, crying, yelling at me for not helping him, and me standing back, allowing him to experience that contrast because I know that that's what he needs to learn to tie the shoes himself and develop his independence. I see the relationship between me and my inner being as the exact same way, where if I'm going through a piece of contrast, that contrast is there to teach me something. It's there to show me something. It's there to help me evolve and shift my vibration in a way that's going to get me close to where I really want to be.
Do you feel that when you are in the state of alignment and you stay there, you hold it for longer periods of time, that contrast doesn't necessarily disappear from your life, but you don't experience it in a painful way anymore?
It's much less of a trigger. The example that I use is somebody that's got a lot of anger. It's not that they've got anger in their DNA, it's just they've got a lot of emotional baggage. And when somebody has a lot of emotional baggage of anger, it takes very little to set them off and to trigger them. right? So the more you work through the emotional baggage that you're carrying, the more you really release that stuff, the less you get triggered or the more it takes to trigger you. So it's easier to maintain that level of alignment.
Yeah, that's definitely, that's in so many, in all areas of life, it's that way. But I feel with anger, it's a very relatable, because, I feel like we all have our triggers. I mean, sooner or later, somebody comes and pushes the right button, and then it's the moment of truth. Even though you feel that trigger, are you going to, go down that route, or are you actually going to take a breather? Because usually when you take a breather, you release that energy and you're on your way again. And but with anger, it's an interesting thing, because the universe makes sure that there are people that are going to trigger you in some ways.
Yeah, and anger relates to that perspective of that's not right or that's not okay. So behind every emotion is a perspective, right? Because those emotions are your guidance system. And what they're guiding you to is to tell you that you've got a perspective that's not in agreement with your inner beings. And if you look at an emotion like anger, it's typically that's not fair, that's not right, it shouldn't be this way, they should know better, which lines up perfectly with what we've just been discussing, which is being okay, allowing, letting somebody, behave in the way that they choose to behave, knowing that that's their level of awareness and that that's still okay.
And I think people are going to say, yeah, but you have to put some limitations on it when it comes to abuse, when it comes to physical harm. And what I would say, and that's just me, and I would love to hear your take on it, is when you are in physical danger, when you're being harmed, I think the natural instinct that we were all given is to remove ourselves from that situation immediately, and then the other work can come. But I just wanted to put it out there because I've heard it before, and I don't want to, I don't want to give that room to take the value out of this point. But if you are in a situation like that, which might very well be the case, the instinct to remove yourself from imminent danger, follow that instinct.
Absolutely. Allowing doesn't mean become 100% passive to your physical reality experience, right? Allowing means allow reality to unfold, but at the same time, in parallel, follow the path that feels best to you.
And I feel also, especially when it comes, because allowing often involves other people, when it comes to that, it means that onward, you're going to have a beautiful path onward if you choose not to have resentment against someone, even if they did something that was very wrong in your perception. And I think that is also, the allowing of forgiveness in that moment, and to say, I'm making peace it's always for yourself. Forgiveness is always first and foremost for yourself, I think.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to make a switch because there's something that's been in the back of my mind, and I know most people are so eager to hear them. Me, myself too. I love success stories. And you being a breakthrough specialist and working with clients every day, I'd love to hear some of your current favorite success stories.
Oh, it's hard to pick them out because different people will measure success in different ways, right?
And that's fine.
So when I look at something like physical healing, for example, I worked with one lady who was told that she had less than 1% chance of conceiving naturally. She did 2.5 years of in vitro fertilization, didn't take, and within 6 months of our first session, she was naturally pregnant, right? All doing mentally emotional work. Another interesting physical story was one lady who had severe arthritis. We did some digging work. We looked at some root causes. She was on heavy medication for nearly 5 years. And then I think her 6th session, 6 weeks in, the pain was 80-90% gone. Those are great and fun stories. I've got one client, he's working on his billionaire status now. Really fun guy. He did this thing, and I don't want to say too much about what he did, but Yeah, see, I got to be careful about divulging too much about my clients. But this guy manifested millions and millions and millions just by repeating, this company is going to invest this amount. This company is going to invest this amount. This company is going to invest this amount. He just repeated it for a few months. This was before really understanding law of attraction. And then all of a sudden, he had the inspiration to make certain phone calls, and it just led to that exact company investing a certain amount. So what would be some good success stories? Give me a topic. What kind of topic would you like to hear about? Because it's so hard to just pick random ones out of the blue.
So there are, one of the things, and I always read all the comments, on our YouTube and everywhere. And the cool thing that I see is that the questions and comments steer away from particular outcomes to states of being, which is exactly the right path, I feel, when you're not focused on the outcome, but on your state of being. So, but I will say that money is, it's a bestseller always. Money success stories, abundant success stories, because for most people, it symbolizes general freedom.
Right.
The freedom to do what you want, to be what you want, to have what you want, and also to have the lifestyle that enables you in all areas of your life to thrive. Now, whether the steps are really in that order, that's a different question, but I think that's a perception thing. So
yeah.
abundant stories, I think, in whatever way, are very interesting.
And here's a good money tip, or a good money conversation to have. And it's funny because I was working on this in my book yesterday morning, is manifesting money is easier when you're not trying to manifest the money, but you're trying to manifest a specific desire. Let me give you an example. So I decided back in March that I needed a new vehicle. My vehicle hit 80,000 kilometers. It started to break down. It was the same make and model as my previous vehicle that started to break down at 80,000. I was like, yeah, this isn't working. I'm trading this in. I want something that's going to be more reliable and feel better. And I started looking, and I found the exact car that I wanted. And the only problem was there was a 6 to 8 month wait list to get one of these cars because of some production issues with the batteries they use. They're a hybrid. So I kind of let it go. And then one day I had the inspiration to hop on the website for the dealerships all in the area. There's about 8 of them. And they all had the inventory. So I started looking, and one of them, 2 hours away, had the name of the model was not the one I was looking for, but the price matched and the description matched. So I was like, okay, that's interesting. That looks like it's an error on the website. I call the dealership up on, I think it was like on a Tuesday. And they're like, yeah, that's exactly it. It was the exact make, model, color, price. It was the vehicle I had set my intent for. I was like, okay, cool. I'll be there on Friday. Looking at the websites, there was another dealership that looked like they had one. I called them up. I said, hey, yeah, is it this model? And the sales lady literally laughed at me. She said, yeah, no, we brought that in months ago. It was a special order. And I said, okay, so what are the odds of finding one at a dealership? And she literally laughed. She said it would be impossible. It would never happen. So now I knew this car was at the dealership. Now here's where the money part comes in. My intent was that the payments for the new vehicle would match what I was currently paying. So Thursday, the day before driving up to the dealership, I had the inspiration to launch a group coaching money program, which I launched on that Thursday. I go to the dealership on Friday. I find out that the down payment that I need for this car to make the same payments was exactly $18,000. This money program was starting on Tuesday. So I said, okay, I'll let you guys know on Monday. I'll put $500 down. You hold it for me till Monday, and I'll let you know on Monday. By Monday morning, that money program sold exactly $18,000 in signups. Right? So I had manifested this vehicle that was supposed to take 6 to 8 months to come in less than 3 weeks. And the story was that somebody had ordered it, a lady. It came in. Another vehicle came in at the same time, another type of vehicle, and she preferred the other vehicle, so she didn't want the one that she ordered. and then I got it. So there's that synchronicity, but the point on this about this story is if the inspiration for this money program would have shown up a month earlier, the money would have came in at 18,000 and I probably would have put it somewhere else. If it would have shown up 3 weeks later, even 2 weeks later, I probably wouldn't have gotten the vehicle, right? So Source gave me the inspiration for the money at the exact right time for it to show up exactly when I needed it. Now, what I see a lot of people doing in the context of money is they're busy, they want to take a trip, they want to travel the world, and they need a budget of $500,000 to travel the world, they want to travel the world. But instead of building the energy behind the travel, before they start planning the travel, they're like, I need to make the money show up first. But the money's not going to show up until it's time for you to really need that money, right? So a lot of people are getting stuck not manifesting their desires because they're focused on the money and they're not focused on the desire, right?
Go ahead. I have a thought and I want to jump in later, but please go ahead.
So going back to the travel example, the money's a how. Put the money aside. Start planning the travel. Plan the hotels, plan the flights, plan the beaches. Take it as far as you can possibly take it until you need the money. And the universe, if you don't have any resistance, any fears around money, any blocks, that's when the money's going to show up, is when you need it. And I've had countless of friends, countless of clients and people telling me that the money they needed showed up for something, travel, seminars, and it always seems to be almost the exact amount of money within like $100.
I can totally match this experience with a story as well, which I would like to tell because, and there's probably plenty, but this one just came up in my mind. I just want to jump in on what you just said. The money's going to show up. I think the interesting thing here is when you do that for a few times, when you start, having less and less resistance, there starts to be a flow, especially around abundance and money, where all of a sudden you go, okay, now I'm moving through this exciting stage of here's my desire and here's everything that lines up to here's an infinite potential of experiences because there's millions or even billions. And with the interesting thing that I have observed is that a lot of times the millions and billions show up when you are in that state of alignment, because having millions gives you the opportunity to take every travel that you want, to do whatever you want, whenever you want, but it doesn't always mean that it is the right time for it. So here's the thing. The interesting thing is the people that have millions at their disposal have a whole different set of challenges than when you don't have them, because it means my ego wants me to do this now, and I can because I have the money to pay for it. But is my inner being, am I in this aligned state? Is this really my step right now? So I just wanted to give this because I have seen it so many times and experienced it, that this work of being in alignment is always going to be in your life. It doesn't go away just because you have a certain amount of money or comfort or material things, which I think and Jim Carrey has said it. Jim Carrey said, and he's made all the money in the world, and he said, I wish everyone could make all the money in the world so they would realize that it isn't the key to whatever they thought that is, but it is really great to have it. It's really a lot of fun, but it doesn't take away from the processes that you learn in life.
Yeah, so it's never about the stuff like we talked about earlier, right? And that's why for me, taking the law of attraction and shifting your perception and your focus in the law of attraction away from specific stuff and more into living this aligned state of being, this aligned life, and allowing that to guide you and lead you, which is going to be in such a fulfilling way. For me, when I go back to this car story, I love my new car. I love the way it drives. I love the way it feels. It's the funnest, best, most satisfying car I've ever owned. But what makes that vehicle 100 times more satisfying is not the car itself, but the manifestation behind it, the magic in the way it showed up, the magic in the money manifestation. The unfolding is what makes me enjoy that vehicle so much more.
Because you weren't efforting.
Exactly.
And I wanted, if it's okay with you, I want to share a success story that's one of the bigger ones, because there's so much alignment in that story and synchronicity. It was from years back when we were still in Austria. And it was before we got ready for our move to the States and the visa and everything that it included. So we had sold our house and wanted to rent short term just to be ready, to be ready. So when the visa arrived, we would be ready to go. And the way it all unfolded was that we sold the house, and there was a set date when we had to move out and find a rental for the time being. And we weren't nervous about it at all. We were looking, but we were, we didn't want to compromise. We knew what we wanted, and that was a certain size, and there was a certain number of rooms. So we were very specific about that. And then the date was coming closer, and we went to a seminar where we met a lady and we talked about it. And, if it comes up in conversation, then you drop, hey, we're looking for a house, or maybe someone's saying something about a house. So we talked about it, and she said, well, are you familiar with the law of attraction? And I said, yes, I'm familiar with that. And we talked about it a little bit, and she had her own little technique, how she worked with it. And I didn't even ask her a lot about it. I just said, let's do it. And she said, okay, what I want you to do is tomorrow at 5 p.m., you sit down, you relax. What you do is you send out exactly what your desire is about that house. Send out your desire, and I'm going to help you with it. And I did it, and I felt it was like a meditation, and I felt a stronger energy than I usually feel when I visualize, or when I, when I'm just in that state. And I received an image of the house, and it was a log house, and there was tall grass around it and a gravel road that led to that log house. And I saw it clearly, and I knew, in that moment, I knew it was done. It's like there was no doubt about it. And then I went into the other room and talked to Christine, my wife, about it, and told her all about it. And we were both excited. And it was probably 3 weeks out till the date where we had to move out. So days went by, and the house didn't show up. It wasn't there. And I wasn't really nervous because I had this knowing, but Christine got nervous because she didn't have the experience. She didn't have that experience. And so to calm the whole situation, we started driving around, we started looking at rentals, and we started asking and kind of a little bit of efforting, although it didn't feel efforting to me because I knew. And of course we were looking for a log house, which in that part of Austria it's like a pink elephant. There are none. Yeah. None that we even knew of. And so it was 4 days before we had to move out. And we were sitting at breakfast, and my wife was a little bit, she was on the edge a little bit. And then she got a phone call from a friend and said, hey, are you guys still looking for a house? My neighbor just came by. His tenants moved out, and he's looking for new tenants, and here's his number. And so Christine called him. And what I didn't say before, we didn't just want a specific size and all of that. We also wanted short-term, month to month, so we would be flexible. Very, low key. And so Christine called the guy, and they hit it off, had a great conversation, and very much on the same wavelength. And he said, yeah, you know what? Here's the address. I'm going to have to leave town right now, but I'll leave you guys the key, and you just go and look at it. And he said, by the way, I don't really want to have a long lease or contract. If we could do month to month, that would be really. So it all started lining up right there. And so we jumped into the car, drove over there. And when we pulled off the main road, we pulled onto a gravel road. And my heart started beating faster, right? And so we pull on that road, And all of a sudden I look to the right, there's tall grass, and there's a gravel driveway right to that log house that I had seen in my vision. And I had never seen that house before. I'd never been there before in that area. And it was exactly what we wanted, like exactly what we wanted to experience. It was in the price range that we wanted, and it all lined up perfectly. And the timing was perfect because we had 4 days, which meant we didn't have a day more than we needed, but also not a day less. That's exactly the time that we needed to get ready to move. All the people that we needed to help had time and showed up, vehicles, whatever we needed, it was there. And that's now, it's 6 years, probably 6 years ago. I still feel the exhilaration of that. And I've had other, synchronistic stories and success stories, but that one was such a biggie, because when you move a whole family with children and all of that, it's kind of it's a bigger thing in life, right? It's not, and what I would be interested in is, what's your take on the vision coming and the knowing? Because this is not usually part of what Abraham speaks about, or not often. It's like I saw it before it happened. I saw the whole thing. I wasn't visualizing in the way of creating it. I received it.
Yeah. So I've had similar experiences. For me, oftentimes I'll have those experiences before I get in the hot seat. And it's almost like I get a glimpse of the question I'm going to be asking before I know what the question is going to be. And if you want to get really deep into physical reality experience and law of attraction and the nature of the fabric of reality, my belief is that everything happens at once, and every potential experience also happens. So there's a version of you living every potential outcome all in these parallel realities. So essentially what you're doing is and we could call each of these frames, let's say. So what you did at that time in meditation is you tuned into that frame. You were so focused on, where am I going to be living? What's that going to look like? Where am I going to be living? What's that going to look like? You got a glimpse of that frame before you got there. As a child, I used to experience precognitive dreams. Not in the sense of disasters or anything like that, but I would wake up in the morning, and then maybe later that afternoon, I would be walking down the stairs with a glass of pink lemonade, and I would just have this flashback of, holy shit, this is exactly what I saw in my dream, right? And my son, when he was 6, he would come up to me and would say, oh, what we just experienced, that happened in my dream last night, right? And I think what we're doing in those moments is we're tuning into these other frames, even though our conscious self is in this current frame right here, right now.
You see, this came at the exact right time. You reminded me of this, which is somewhere in the back of my mind, because right now in our life, we're in a very similar situation in between houses. And I am, of course, at some moments, I'm trying to tap into what I've done before. And that trying part doesn't really help, right? so more, it's like finding my easing into it. And so this helped me a lot. Thank you. There's one thing that I noticed after our last interview is that quite a lot of people signed up for your e-course and also for the collective. And I just thought about it because we've touched on so many different subjects, and we've gone really deep right now. What can people expect when they sign up for your e-course? How do you ease into the work with people?
Yeah, so the e-course came about probably close to 2 months ago now. We're up to about 1,500 students in the e-course. And really what happened was I was on a call with one of my clients, and I got off, and during that call I said, maybe you should create an e-course because you've got lots of great content. And then after I got off that call, I said, you know what? I've got lots of great content. Maybe I should put an e-course together. So what I decided to do is take all my best resources, the key concepts that most people are missing when it comes to manifesting the big stuff, having really big success with law of attraction. I threw those videos together, threw almost some bonus content together, dropped it all into this e-course. It took me maybe 6 hours to put the whole thing together. Wasn't sure if I was going to charge for it. Wasn't sure if I was going to make it free. I put it free for a few weeks. I had close to 1,000 signups. I think it took about 3.5 weeks for the first 1,000. And I was like, you know what? People are loving this so much. They're getting so much benefit out of it. Doesn't take any of my time or effort. So I'm just going to leave it as free. And really what that e-course, the core part of that e-course is something called what I call the 4 A's of manifestation, or the 4 A's of law of attraction. So I go in detail about alignment, about action taking, about allowing, and what I call acceleration, which Abraham-Hicks calls momentum. So those are the 4 most important topics in this whole world of law of attraction. I go over those in short videos. And then in the bonus section, I've got stuff for money manifestation and relationship manifestation and a bunch of stuff. So that's the e-course, nickbreau.com/e-course. And then in parallel to that, I had finished a group money program, this money program I talked about earlier, called It Into the Bank. And people were asking.
The one that paid for, had the down payment for your
the carrier. Yeah. So that money program was finishing up, and people were asking for more group coaching and more group coaching. So I said, okay, so what I'll do is, instead of doing another group coaching program, I'll create this collective, and it's a membership-based thing where we do live group calls every second week. And what I also threw into that was the money program call recordings, some hypnosis, resistance, clearing, audios. So I basically put a whole bunch of resources into that as well. And my goal for the collective is to literally build the world's most aligned community. We've got 73, 74, 75 members in that so far.
Why I want to, because this, I want to say something here. This is not a sales call. We're really having a fun, aligned conversation. However, why I think, and I believe that in addition to listening to the Abraham videos, in addition to reading books and doing things that you love, I believe that there are times in life when it's great to make a decision, to take a course of being and a course of action, and then follow it. And I don't mean in an efforting way, but it's like what you offer is a little bit of, that you offer the guidance and you offer steps, and that helps because you can check in. You have a step, you can check in. So I encourage you all to, if that resonates with you, and if Nick resonates with you and his style, to sign up for the e-course, and if you feel aligned, for the collective, because you are now making a decision to take a next step. And if it's not Nick, or if it's not the Inspire channel, that's totally fine too. But I think in general, it's important because now you have focused your energy somewhere, right? And that helps a lot of times. And that's not to say that you can't do it on your own. Not at all. I'm just saying it is sometimes really, really good to have that guidance.
Yeah, and for the collective, a lot of the inspiration was to build the community, a community of people who make alignment a priority, who make shifting into this new paradigm a priority. And I've gotten lots of clients there, and my goal is to literally help this community build something with a really strong vibration, a really strong, level of alignment, and help people really, my biggest passion is showing people what's possible in physical reality and helping people get there. And I can't think of a better way to do that than working with an aligned group of people who share the same goal.
Oh, and it creates such a momentum. It creates such big momentum, and that sometimes it can last for weeks or months, I told you before, I'm excited about this idea. I think it's great. And you described it to me as even having all the different screens on there so people can actually see each other. And I think that's just a very powerful thing in itself. And before we close this interview today, which I'm very grateful for, again, thank you for taking the time. I just had the hunch to say, why don't we close this out with giving a glimpse into what working with Nick Breau might look like. So I told you before, here's my situation, our situation right now. We're about to move out of one house. There's a set date, and the path to the new house hasn't really shown up yet. We know what we want exactly, so that hasn't really shown up yet. And although I have been in this situation before and we've done it really smoothly and successfully, here I am today and I have the opportunity to talk to Nick Breau, the Breakthrough Specialist. So I'm going to take advantage of it. Nick, I'm going to ask you for some advice here. What would you do if you were in my shoes?
Okay, so first I would make a list. I would describe that house to a T in as much detail as possible. It's funny, a few years ago, a friend of mine asked me the exact same question. And I say, make a list, get as specific and detailed as possible. He wrote down 14 things. The house manifested through a crazy synchronicity the day before he had to move out of his old place. And this new place matched 13 out of those 14 things. The only thing that it didn't match was he had written down that it would be mortgage free and he wouldn't have to pay for it. So I told him, okay, you went a little far with that one, but 13 out of 14 is not bad. And my girlfriend, when she manifested me, she made a list of 50 things she wanted in a partner, and I matched 48 out of them. So A, get specific. Don't be afraid to get specific. Draw the house if you feel inspired to draw it. That would be the first step. Second step is embody it. So start acting as if you already have it. Right? So when you wake up in the morning, keep your eyes closed and convince yourself that you're waking up in this new house. So visualize yourself getting up and going down to the kitchen and seeing what this new kitchen looks like. Smell the smell of the coffee in the coffee machine that you turned on. So really make it a 3D, 5D, 5 senses full experience of feeling it. The other piece of advice I have is around here when somebody wants to sell a house, they'll take a statue of St. Joseph, they'll bury it under the flower garden, and the superstition or the tradition is that if you do that, then that saint is going to find somebody to buy a house for you. And the reason that this technique works for so many people is you're handing off the responsibility of the sale of the house to this avatar, right? And what I told somebody recently is you can use that in the opposite sense. For me, I've got an avatar. I don't know if you can see it back there. There's a little green Yoda bobblehead figurine. That's my avatar. That represents my inner being. So anytime I've got a desire, I will write it out in the same way I told you to. I'll fold up that piece of paper and I'll stick it under the avatar. And that's my process of handing responsibility over to my inner being and letting go. And after you've done that, your last step is just be in allowing mode. Go have fun, go play, stay off the topic, and just wait for your desire to show up.
Here's the thing, and I'm telling this to everyone. I'll be honest, Nick hasn't told me anything that I haven't heard before, not maybe compressed in the way you said it, except for the avatar. That's new, and that's probably what I needed to hear today. But here's the thing, and that's why I talked about it. This is focused guidance, and it is something that when you are at certain points in your life, you're going to need focused guidance. Everyone does. Everyone is at some point, and it's not a bad thing to ask for help. It's not a bad thing to say, can you assist me in this process? Can you advise me in this process? But that is one thing we don't have to, because we're not doing it alone anyways. There's a universe that's doing it through us and for us. And the universe sometimes sends us people, sometimes sends us books, sometimes sends us other stuff. So that's why I said this earlier. There's this barrier to ask people for help. And I want you to know, it doesn't matter what level of success and fulfillment you achieve in life and what you get to, there's always going to be a situation where someone is going to be of help and assistance, and just allow it to come in with appreciation, whether it's through a conversation, whether it's through actually taking a course, reading a book. Allow that in, because it is not just helpful, it's satisfying, fulfilling, and more often than not, you will have made a new friend that you didn't have before. And I really want to say again, thank you, Nick. I'm sure we're going to do this again because it's a lot of fun. And I want to invite you all to send questions, suggestions, whatever it is that you would like to hear. And we're going to put the links for the e-course to your website and everything, Nick Breau, in the description. Connect with this guy. I have enjoyed it so much, and I can't wait till we do it again.
Totally. This is all about fun and play. And that's the best part of the co-creation of physical reality, whether it's, group coaching work or giving advice like this, or just having fun discussions. We keep going back to the Abraham-Hicks cruises. The hot seat's great, the seminars are great, but it's the co-creative experiences you have with the people there that's the icing on the cake. That's why we go back.
Nick Breau, everyone. Thank you so much. Have a blessed rest of your days.
Thank you for having me. Bye for now.
Bye.